There. Episode 3 of Fix Dalton with your host, Jeff Martin, and our guest today, Crystal Brummans.
Hi.
So we're just going to have a discussion about how this whole thing got started for both of us and what we're doing now, what we're doing moving forward. Mm-hmm. And it really got started, I believe it was 16 months ago.
I don't know. It seems like
a
lifetime.
Long
time. Yeah, so, last spring?
Yeah, last spring.
Yeah,
I think it is right about 15, probably 16 months ago now.
Yeah.
And so it's been a big change in my life as well. So it's
lots of new experiences and learning.
Yeah, and I know you've talked about a decent amount, but take us back to that time, right? Because the story of Hidden Creek Farm is how it got me involved, and I'll go over a little bit of why I got involved specifically. But so what happened? How did it go? General strokes.
So how it got started? Well, we started the farm in 2015, and we kind of dove right into things. It was winter when we moved in, and we had been pre-planning lots of farm plans. We wanted to do it for a long time, to help people that are sick and have different food allergies. And we got to know all the neighbors okay. I mean, we were busy all the time, so it wasn't like we went over and had dinner with anybody, but we said, hey, we're the new people in town, and we brought some of them, like chickens and eggs and stuff like that, if we had some available. And we started doing like a couple events and stuff, like dinners, and we had a plant sale for my mom to raise some money. And I think that's kind of when everything started to happen and fall apart, but we were really unaware that was actually happening. Mm-hmm. So I don't remember. I was in my garden area, and I was like feeding my rabbits or something, and then I had a friend come over, and we went over to one of our neighbors, Bill, who's a really nice man that also has been gardening for a long time, and we go over there and talk about gardening. And sometimes the service is bad out here, so I got a voicemail. I had a couple voicemails on my phone, so I checked that, and it was two lawyers that had left me voicemail messages. And they basically were telling me they were going to file at the Muskegon County Courthouse, mm-hmm. And that I needed to be there. So I jumped in my vehicle with my friend, and we were already like running late. So it was really a lot of anxiety. Like, I've never been, involved in the court system or arrested or anything like that. So I have no idea. I was very new to all that kind of stuff, and it was scary. And so we actually, when we finally got to the courtroom, we sat there for, I think it was like 2 hours before they got to us, because they were prosecuting people that were reoffenders. Mm. And I think we were just kind of like thrown in there at the end, it was, yeah. And I went in front of the judge all by myself. I had no idea why I was there. Oh, it was crazy, It is. It's insane. There's two different lawyers on the other side. I don't even know who they're working for. And basically the judge was like, why don't you have a lawyer? And I'm like, I don't even know why I'm here, And he said, well, I'll give you, I think it was like 10 days or something to find someone to represent you, because you can't represent yourself. And so, I walked out of the courtroom and had like an emotional breakdown, right there. Mm-hmm. And then I had like a friend that works in the system who was very gracious and brought me into a separate room, and we started calling like all the Muskegon County lawyer numbers that you could. And a lot of people were just not available because the 10 days isn't really, and then you're trying to explain to them what's going on, and they're like, I don't really know if I want to take that on, or and a lot
getting
of
sued by a government, it's a big thing.
And a township and so I don't know, it was it was very stressful, and we didn't even really know why yet.
Right.
You know, we didn't know why this was happening or anything, so we were just trying to figure that out. And it was just, a lot of stuff was going on after that. And then we're trying to still farm, and we have this lawsuit going on, and it's just like, you're just trying to be a good person and do all these good things to help people, and then all of a sudden, here we are. And it doesn't seem like it's actually that very of an uncommon story when you get to looking into, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So since this has happened to us, I've heard about like so many more farms that, you know, this has happened to, or even just like homesteads, you know, people that aren't even like providing goods for anybody, they're just doing it for their family. You know, it's really sad because like why are you picking on these people? You
Well,
know?
it's a wild change in the culture,
Yeah.
right? Back in World War II, the United States was like, we need victory gardens and little homestead type situations so we can support ourselves and be self-reliant and support a stronger economy.
We've found that people have just gotten so far away from that. You know, there's all this convenience in the world now, and people really go for the convenience. Like, why would I grow a garden when I can just go to the store?
Right.
Why would I have some chickens for eggs when I can just go to the store, you know?
Yeah.
Well, what happens when that's not there anymore? Nobody thinks about that, or just even the whole quality side of things. You know, there's when you do it yourself and you do it the right way, the quality is way different. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting, right? And then, so how I got involved, I can't remember how I specifically heard about you, but
someone that knew you told you to contact us from what I remember.
Yeah.
I don't know if you stopped by or called or whatever, but yeah.
Yeah, it was some version of that, because I've tried a ton of health experiments over my whole life, because I was huge into fitness. I had CrossFit certification and kettlebell certification and did powerlifting and all these different things.
Yeah.
Then got sick in Africa, and then it was more away from fitness and more towards survival.
Right. Yeah.
And repairing the digestive system, and that's what I was.
And that's not a good feeling, is it?
No, it's not.
So like
it's a desperate feeling.
Right. So imagine all these people who do buy products from us, and then, you know, we tell them, well, we don't know if we're going to be able to be here anymore, you know, to help you. We don't know.
Well, and I think that's why you've gotten such a response.
Yeah.
Right? And that's part of why you got such a response out of me, I think.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit more than that, you know. So I teach kids and adults around the world in a bunch of different countries, and they don't think stuff like this happens in the United States, right? They have this idealized vision of the United States, and the United States is actually an ideal, right? The ideal of America, and the reality is a little rougher.
Yeah.
But I always emphasize that it takes the people fighting back against the corruption to help correct the system, to keep it on track, keep it on course.
Right.
And I'd done all this reading, right? I've read thousands of books. Some people don't believe that, but they don't know women that read romance novels because they've read many more. And I've read a lot of history, and then you read a lot, you know, World War II type of stuff, and Nazis and communists and all this stuff, and you think, and slavery, and you think, you know, could I be Alexander Solzhenitsyn, Viktor Frankl, Frederick Douglass? Could I be these guys and stand up against these bad things?
Yeah.
And you don't really know, you know, because I've been in some bad situations.
Well, that's like fight or flight. You don't know if you're going to be fight or flight until
You
you're
don't know.
put into that situation.
Yeah, a lot of people like to imagine that there'll be something.
Oh yeah.
Everyone
Those are
likes to
usually the
imagine.
people that are not. Right?
Yeah. And so when this happened, I remember, because it's not really my fight, right?
No.
I had the herd share, but it's in my township. It's at a farm I go to with people I know. And if I don't, it's a huge overstepping, right? I mean, it's like,
well, then it would be like,
very
what's
blatant.
next?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then what could they do that I would respond to?
Right.
And the answer is there's nothing, right? You would have, it doesn't matter. You would have bowed down to anybody, however bad they were, wherever they were in history, whenever they were in history. So I decided, all right, well, I have to do something, and I had the writing. So I started writing the Fighting Local Government Corruption, Part 1. I didn't know how many parts there would be. I just wanted
It's
to
surprising, right?
do something.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and then I realized, you know, the more you dig into it, and you realize that Tony Barnes controls the Facebook groups for Dalton, so I started my own, the Concerned Citizens group, and then I had to write some more stuff and organize the one meeting that everyone showed up to, called for the resignation, made the little petition, and did the recalls, and it just kind of escalated and escalated and escalated because I wasn't shooting for anything other than correcting the problem.
Yeah.
Which, just kept being a problem.
Right.
So,
Well, you're trying to fix something that's not functioning. There's going to be hard times trying to do that. So there's going to be pushback and wins and losses and all the things and
years, right? That's the weird thing is that if someone decides to attack you today, you have to fight for the next 5 years.
It's just like working on your health, though. It takes a lot of time.
It's constant vigilance and forever, basically. Right.
Yeah, it's a lifestyle change is what Lee and I always say. You can't just it's not like you can go on a political diet.
Right. Yeah. Like a little bit of time doesn't work. Yeah. It doesn't claim freedom by working on it for 12 months.
Right. So it's consistency.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very true. There's a good similarity between physical health and societal health.
Yeah.
It's very true. Yeah. And the society of citizens kind of is like the body. Like different parts or the cells of a body making up an individual organism.
And when certain parts more and more parts are continuing to dysfunction, then at some point you can't function at all anymore.
Right.
And that's when things crash. So, yeah.
And you need an immune system.
Yeah.
Which is what I'm attempting to be.
Right.
White blood
cell. That's
the
most important part
right.
of the whole system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've obviously gone through a bunch of stuff over the last 16 months.
Right.
Now it brings us till now. Now I know you've had crazy ups and downs, emotional ups and downs. Not sure what the future, if you were going to be here, what the future was going to be. If the future looked positive, the future looked negative, and what the best way out of the situation for you was. But you've decided to fight it the whole way and try to win for the good side, essentially.
And
for
a
freedom.
lot of that is because we had support,
Right.
And when you're fighting something, doing it yourself is a lot harder.
Intimidating.
Yeah. So you have those little voices and stuff
Yes.
that kind of coax you along, or I don't know, just say something that makes sense, and then you just keep going, or whatever it is,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I agree. I've had the same thing. People have thanked me for what I'm doing. I've been stopped randomly, pulling out of a parking lot before, and someone's like, "Hey, Jeff, keep up the good work," and you're like,
"Did you know who it was?"
I guess yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't realize at the time. It caught me way off guard, and I was like, "Ooh, I'm doing a good thing."
Yeah.
One more day.
Yeah, we had people come up to us that we had no idea, and it was amazing how many people came from distances, like Kalkaska and. I don't know, just drove a couple hours just to come down.
I've made some new friends out of this, yeah.
Yeah, so that was just really impressive and relieving to experience,
Yeah.
So, I don't know, it was a bad thing, but a lot of good things have come out of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been interesting.
I think I could probably actually come up with more good things than bad things.
That's good.
Yeah, the emotional part isn't fun, but whatever, that's life.
Right.
Just try not to let it scar you for the rest of your time here.
And I think a lot of times if you can accept those instead of really resisting those emotions, which is hard, right, you can become stronger, kind of more assimilated, more put together, essentially.
Yeah, and I think that's the part that breaks a lot of people is too much to handle the emotional stuff.
Right.
So I don't know. You just have to try and put those things in certain places and deal with them and not let them build up. And and definitely the people that support you help.
Right.
Don't put all the burden. Try not to put all the burden on yourself all the time, because it doesn't put you in a good health state.
Yes.
Either.
Emotional health,
right?
Physical health, mental
stress.
health.
Yeah. You want to wreck your immune system.
Spiritual health. You got the whole thing goes together.
Yeah, it does. So it's kind of amazing, but I don't know. Here we are.
So as this thing has progressed, now we've gotten into really, tell you the truth, I was kind of hoping we wouldn't get here, right? Because there were other stages where it could have broken off and corrected. And Václav Havel and The Power of the Powerless led the Velvet Revolution in Czechoslovakia. Right? Talk about him sometimes. Super interesting guy. And it was a fairly peaceful revolution. He spent 3 years in prison. But before that, I believe some of his friends got killed, but fairly peaceful as far as revolutions go, fighting against the communists. And he talks about when you start resisting an oppressive authoritarian government, right? It doesn't matter. The communists are way left authoritarian, the way right authoritarians are the same problem, right? When you start resisting them, they only have two choices. And the one is to either become more oppressive or to give, And so we haven't, to tell you the truth, I don't think we've seen what this current regime will do unless they win the election, in which case they'll have a big choice to make.
Right.
But as we've progressed, we've gone into
Are they going to learn from the things, or are they going to continue, to do things the way they've been doing? Like, are you going to follow the evil things? Like, I feel like when you're doing something, you always have that thought in your head that's like, I don't know if this is a good idea, Or like, this doesn't feel morally right for me to do this, or I know that
conscience.
Right. So I feel like that's always there, and just for a second, like you have that little thought in your mind, like,
a decent amount of people, I think, push it down.
Right.
But it's there.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
So if more people just listen to that, then the world would definitely be a different place, and even locally, I'm not trying to get off the topic or anything, but like I was saying earlier, how many people came and said that things just even in the township has happened to them, like all these restrictions on, you can only have so many chickens and all this. Why? Why?
Right.
Like, what are these people hurting? Nothing.
Well, I think that's where the line needs to be, because there has to be lines, but how are you calculating where the line is?
Yeah, and it's like political correctness. Like, that could go on forever, and things just keep getting eliminated. That's just a slippery slope, if you want to call that, or whatever.
It is. Yeah, which they call a logical fallacy, but there are actual slopes that are slippery.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you ever been on a slide in elementary school when it gets rained on? That's slippery.
And there's this idea of like a limiting factor.
Yeah.
And I like to refer to individual rights through checks and balances. And you can debate on when someone's rights are getting violated. But there, somewhere that's true. And the debate should be happening about where that is, not like, who has the authority to make the decision.
Thing too, is
what is the right decision?
People, a lot of people want to feel powerful, so they I don't know, they just enforce things that are silly.
Yes.
To feel like they have that power.
Yeah, there is, and I think there's even more diabolical side to that. Sometimes I think it usually occurs at a high level. I think it probably has occurred here, but it's a little hard to say.
Yeah.
But I think so. The current people in power are obviously not on this side, but I think they could have taken the suggestions I've written about in my articles and gone with something like the idea of broadcasting and recording meetings. It's not a ridiculous idea. It's the most reasonable thing in the world.
Yeah.
And it's a small step.
Just be more open, but I don't know if people are afraid to be open and stuff because you're afraid someone's going to find something and find like inconsistency and then.
Well, we know there is already.
Right. So that
they weren't holding open meetings over whether they were trying to sue you out of existence.
Right.
There was no vote. It was just
nothing happened with that. We tried to get some ththings happen with that, or you did. So,
I did. Yeah, I filed a police report for that. Yeah. One of the recalls was for something else. But it's an extremely important thing because if they can just do stuff behind the scenes that would ruin people's lives, right? And I had a guy comment on the one video with either Lee or Gerald that, we shouldn't use the word evil. But it's that's actually the distinction I'm trying to make is that if you're trying to ruin someone's life by taking all of their stuff away from them for no good reason, right? Like, if you murdered someone, they throw you in prison. Hey, good. But if you initiate the force, right, there's self-defense. But it's like it's not neutral. Yeah. It's not good and it's not neutral. So it's bad. And whatever range we want to talk about evil in, it's on that side.
Right. Yeah.
But they could do these little things that isn't even a fundamental change, but they definitely are trying to hide stuff. That's why they've violated the Open Meetings Act. And it won't be enforced, so they have to enforce it on themselves.
What was their What was their fuel for that? Just because
there are questions there.
Yeah.
I've never been able to get a straight answer. I've talked with a lot of people and whatnot, and there's some speculation on what was the real drive to try to eliminate you completely, because it was like they had to vote on the restraining order afterwards.
Yeah.
They never had a vote on the lawsuit at all. And then they cited the parking thing, and they really tried to promote that in the media, but that's not what the actual lawsuit said.
Right. Oh, it changed a lot. That stuff all changed a lot.
When I had a bunch of friends that called and emailed Dalton, and then everyone at Dalton was like, we're not suing the farm.
Yeah.
And then they would call me and be like, the township's not suing them. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, the township's lying.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
So it was a crazy thing, and it was hard. It's hard to tell what the actual true motivation is.
Because, when the whole Dalton Township meeting was held and everybody came, their lawyer was there.
Right.
So, that was interesting.
Yes. Well, and then, so that brings us to now, we had to keep pushing it further and further. And I had multiple people from Dalton Township tell me that, because I wanted to get a choice, right? The idea of having a single party running elections is ridiculous.
Right.
I have students in China. That's how their elections are,
Yeah.
right? It's not the United States, and it really annoys me. It happens in a decent amount of small governments. And, even the governments that do decently well, which ours has not, that still annoys me. You need that. It's a check and balance.
Right.
If you don't have a choice in the vote, there is no check and balance when you vote. It's gone. It's been eliminated.
Right.
And so, which is restore checks and balances is a big thing for me. But then I heard from multiple people, because I was trying to get other people to run, right? Because I was trying to do some other things with my life, which is still
proving to be hard.
very difficult. People
Yeah.
are very afraid. They were very afraid. They are very afraid. And I've had multiple people that said they would donate to my campaign, but they're afraid. It's surprising. It's township politics, but it happens that way at every level apparently.
Even in more rural areas.
Yeah.
Like some people think Dalton's rural and then other people don't, and then you go up to like Shelby, and I know of people that have like the same kind of problems up there, and and I don't know, in my there's a lot more farms and stuff up in that area, but yet there's still like a lot of corruption towards farms, so it's weird. Surprising, yeah.
Yeah, it's an odd consistency.
Yeah, but you control food, you control lots of things, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my father's always been confused about why somewhere like the Soviet Union or Communist China tries to limit their own food supply, right? Because they try to eliminate small farmers. And I know a handful of people that grew up in the Soviet Union.
Well, then you can only have so much growth, If you want to control something, you usually want to keep it to a certain size.
Well, what ends up happening, right, and this is the way they control it, is that if you have a small farm, so you're a small farm, it can both support you, right? It can feed you, but it can also support several neighbors.
Yeah.
And you run pretty efficiently. You can support quite a few neighbors. Well, now if those neighbors know construction, mechanical work, or whatever, then they can trade with you. It eliminates the need for a centrally controlled government.
Right.
Well, so the people that like power and centrally controlled governments hate small farms, and they hate that. And one of the women that I know that grew up in the Soviet Union, she said that's what they're doing in Dalton Township is exactly what they did in the Soviet Union. They would have the small government shut down the small farm, and they would just do that everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's quite disturbing to hear the parallels.
Yeah, I've heard of farms before us in this township that shut down because of that reason exactly. So. And in many locations in Michigan, and a lot of people think of Michigan as a really agricultural, supporting state, So,
right. But the fight's constant.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of my foreign students don't get.
Yeah.
The difference between us and the Soviet Union is we're here having this fight.
Yeah.
And they didn't have that fight.
Yeah. So if you don't pay attention and the fight's already over, then.
Right, then you lose before you even get a chance.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So that's another important thing to, wake up and pay attention a little bit. Like I wasn't political at all, before any of this happened, but I pay more attention now.
Right.
So.
Because you know how important it is.
Yeah.
And most people want to be left alone, which I completely get, because I'm in the same category.
We're really busy. We're trying to do good, and it's just kind of boggles my mind that we've had so many political issues,
right? That are like getting in the way of living.
But then you learn more about politics, and it's not really as surprising anymore.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, which is sad,
Well, and so moving into this kind of like our next phase here, right? You had to go through the same debate, right, with Lee on whether he was going to run or not for a position.
Yeah.
How did that go? Like, how do you feel about that?
Oh, it was a pretty easy decision, you know. I mean, I was, when Lee had a full-time job, I was working here all day, so I might as well stay here because I know the customers better and stuff like that.
Right.
And he can do the trustee part. And he didn't have a problem with it. You know, he wanted to do something.
Right.
And we debated like supervisor or a different position or whatever, but then I'd basically be here alone again. And there's just too much to do. So we did trustee.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Oh, which is a good spot.
Yeah.
It's really at the township level, the trustee on the board is the check and balance to a large extent.
Right.
You have multiple different types of checks and balances, but that's kind of the most important at this level.
Right. So, I mean, yeah, and if we can just, we brought more attention to what was going on, so I'm just really hoping that more people will step up, and we really need to try and get the word out to Dalton more and get the people that aren't voting.
That is huge, right, to get people participating. You know, and it's a weird thing because, you know, your vote doesn't count. You're looking at the time?
No, something popped up on your computer.
The flies, pop up on the computer.
I don't know. Making sure we're still rolling here.
It's still rolling.
Okay.
We can't see ourselves.
Yeah.
But, there are flies hitting around. 'Tis a farm.
Yeah.
And people don't feel like their vote counts, and largely it doesn't, right? If you're voting for the president, it's probably not going to come down to one vote.
Right.
But it becomes less and less true, one, the more you understand politics, because you understand it happens at these different levels and stages. And then at local politics, in Holton Township, one of the trustee spots was changed by one vote.
Right.
You know, my grandmother, when I was growing up in Blue Lake Township, she, look at a fly did get in front of the little camera. She lost by, I believe, 3 votes one time.
Okay.
And I didn't vote that year. Right? I was like 18, 19.
So then you felt bad.
Well, I was staying in Muskegon, and I didn't come out to vote that day, and I did other things. So she lost by 3 votes, and we definitely knew more than 3 people that didn't vote, right?
Yeah.
And that year for Christmas, she literally gave me a piece of coal.
Oh, yeah.
It's hilarious. Grandma, she was funny. Plus angry. She was. But yeah, that's a huge part of it. And then no matter who gets in, you know, we had to bust through the myth of Republicans can't run. I had multiple people tell me that. It annoyed me so much. I wrote a whole Article 16, on that weird little myth that annoyed me so much. And then I was the first one to file. That way other people could file, right? Kind of break through. And they did. And we got basically a whole slate except for clerk. And it's great. And then if we just have, even if I don't win, but like Gerald Flater, Lee Whitty, if those guys win, they can still be the checks and balances and implement some of this stuff. And, you know, I was curious as to your thoughts. I wrote Article 17 on these, like, rights that a township, there's a lot of stuff that the township doesn't affect, or doesn't affect the township, or they don't have the choice, right? It happens at the county or the state or the federal level. But there are definitely some things that happen at the township level, a lot of things that are super important. And I know you know about the case down in Florida where they eliminated gardens. Right? and the people like appealed it and then lost. And they in this whole area of Florida, it's illegal to have a garden. And it's insane. So I made the idea of like the right to garden as this rule, as this ordinance in Dalton Township as a right. What do you think about those types of rights at a township level?
I mean, I feel like you shouldn't even have to say that that's a right. It just is.
I agree.
Yeah.
But I think if you don't say it, then you lose it.
Right.
And that it's
because then people can either assume that it is or it isn't.
Well, and it was a very major debate between the founding fathers when they were talking about the Bill of Rights. Right. Many of the most important founding fathers did not sign the Constitution because it was this crazy thing. There were the Articles of Confederation. That Constitutional Convention was kind of secret. 70 people were invited. I think 55 showed up. And like John Hancock, Samuel Adams, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, George Mason, Henry Lee, all didn't sign it. And one of the big objections to it was John Adams and Thomas Jefferson were overseas, but they also didn't like this. that it didn't have a Bill of Rights. But the argument on the other side, it took a couple more years, right? And I mean, George Mason, that was one of his biggest things. He's considered the godfather of the Bill of Rights because he wrote the Virginia Bill of Rights, which has 12, which are very good, very unique. Number 12 is very interesting. And one of the arguments against the Bill of Rights is that if you specifically lay out someone's rights, if you forget to include some, then it will be known that those are not rights. Right, which is why they implemented the 9th and 10th rights as states' rights, and the rights are left to the people or the states.
Yeah. At the same time, it's hard to think of all the things that are your natural rights. You know? So
we've got a good history of it, so we can kind of tell. But it's also a little bit different at a township level. You know, I mean, I think it would be a fine federal law, the right to garden, and I think it'd be a fine state law, the right to garden, and a fine county law, the right to garden, a fine township ordinance, the right to garden.
I think, that's great. It's just ridiculous that it has to go there. You know,
but I think it does.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree. Like today, that it does. You know? Right. Yeah.
The fact that it needs to be.
Yeah, I'm saying it's sad that it needs to be.
I agree. It is kind of insane, but I think it's also good to articulate those things and then to have the ability to debate them on paper, right? So we're taking our mind, we're putting it on paper, then we can both look at it and say yes, no, whatever. You can actually debate the thing. Yeah. And I think that public debate is huge. And I think that's a big part of broadcasting and recording meetings and publicly posting them is people that can't make it to the meeting can be part of the debate.
Right, yeah.
Right? Yeah. So
for whatever reason, physical or just whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we got all the weird stuff with holding meetings and everything now, and it would help with all that. It's like it just gets more people the ability to be involved with whatever debate we're trying to have.
Well, that's why you're at my house right now and I'm not at your house.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Because you had logistical issues.
Yeah.
I was like, I'll make the time, pack up the stuff, and go with it. So yeah, exactly. Right. So you wouldn't, like, if there was a government meeting right now, you would not be there unless it was a court.
Right.
Yeah. So it's very true. Cool.
Is that good? You think we got it?
Well, I don't have a specific plan of what we're going into. It's just a discussion. Do you have any thoughts, ideas, comments, concerns?
I don't know. I just, like, if people are watching this, I would hope that they look into everybody that's running, and put a little homework in and pay a little more attention, even at your local level, to what's going on.
Yeah.
And
I would say especially your local level, because it's what you can actually affect.
Right.
Right? If you're paying attention to the federal stuff, what are you going to do?
Yeah,
you're going to go to Washington, D.C. and lobby someone? No.
Yeah. And you, talk to your neighbors and your friends and maybe actually talk to the people that are running. They're people too. And just vote when it comes time to vote. Like, make that time to do it.
Right.
It's not very hard, so...
Yeah, and I think this election there might be half of people that do mail-in voting.
Yeah.
So in the primaries, it was huge. And the primary showed that a small amount of votes count, right? Because I won the primary by 8 votes, 368 to 360. Yeah. So the stuff actually does matter, and it's interesting. It's not for everyone to do everything. Like I, written 18 articles and did the recalls and did all the other stuff for running for the office, which will eat up a huge amount of my time if I win. You don't have to do all of that, but be involved to the extent that it feels good to make a difference. Something like that.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, it's great talking to you as always, Crystal. I know you have dirty hands and you have more farm stuff to go do.
Doesn't matter.
But good talking to you, and I'll see you next time.
Okay, thanks.